good afternoon, possibly good morning, depending on where you are logged in. Welcome to the 26th episode of the EQ Lunch and Learn. My name is Mucha Mlingo, and I am your host for this series. And we are excited once again to be having another conversation about how you can strengthen the skill of emotional intelligence. Our topic today is managing anxiety at work. Emotions are connected to our decision making, to how we communicate with others, and how we interpret the world around us. Emotions also contribute to our subconscious biases towards ourselves and towards others. So, why don't we pay attention and learn to do something about it? This series, the EQ Lunch and Learn, is designed to support you to pay more attention to your emotions and to navigate them more effectively for your greater success at work. Anxiety is an emotion characterized by feelings of tension, worried thoughts, and physical changes like heightened blood pressure, sometimes even heightened body temperature. Workplace anxiety involves feeling stressed, anxious, uneasy, or tense about work, which would ultimately include anxiety related to job performance, interactions with coworkers, or even making presentations or public speaking. Anxiety can be uncontrollable and often debilitating, and handling it on the job isn't always easy. But getting it under control is necessary for career and personal progress. As we continue to spread awareness about mental well being, we're delighted to be having this conversation about how to manage anxiety at work. In this conversation with my esteemed guest, we're going to be exploring what anxiety is and how it affects us at work. We'll talk about some of the workplace and lifestyle triggers that contribute to high anxiety. And we'll talk about how to navigate anxiety at work and how to get professional help if that is what is needed. As always, I have a fabulous panel with me. I hope you are ready with your lunch because we are ready with the learning. Allow me to introduce my panel. I'm going to bring up first Sharon, Sharon Kangai, a sister friend who is a phenomenal woman in her own right. She is a high visibility strategic partner that leads the coordination and alignment of diverse business functions. For over 8 years, she's worked with top executives to articulate and oversee the execution of strategies, business operations, and talent as well. She loves making genuine connections, and those she's interacted with describe her as an empathic leader. And I can definitely confirm that. Sharon, welcome to this conversation today.
Thank you, Much. I'm glad to be here. I'm excited to have this conversation and just see how we can help each other navigate, anxiety at the workplace.
Thank you. Thank you very much. If you want to connect more with Sharon, you can connect with her on LinkedIn, and we've shared with you how you can connect with her. We have with us John Wills Njoroge as well. Really delighted to have him here. He is a passionate, knowledgeable, and experienced psychologist with a proven track record of success, with a deep desire to participate in coaching and organizational behavior, focusing on developing African young leaders by equipping, enlightening, and engaging different sectors to dignify people in knowledge, understanding, wisdom, and skills. He is the co founder of Lead Global Impact Limited, an organization that focuses on mentorship, leadership development, psychosocial support, and promoting youth and women enterprises with a focus on aligning gender parity. John, it's great to connect with you. Welcome to the conversation.
Thank you very much. I appreciate and looking forward to enjoy this conversation.
Thank you very much. To connect with John, you can also connect with him on LinkedIn. Last but not least, we have Scholar who's with us as well. Dr. Scholastica Deli is a nationally recognized and honored mental health practitioner. She is a senior lecturer of counseling psychology with a specialization in trauma and rehabilitation psychology. She has a wide range of experience working with mental health issues, both in homes and in the workplace at a national and international level. She is the founder of a mental wellness organization with an acronym YATA, meaning You Are the Answer, where people are nurtured into self discovery. Apart from being a trainer, lecturer, and consultant, she also serves on various boards in an advisory position. Dr. Scholar, you are so welcome. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
Fantastic. And again, if you want to connect with Dr. Scholastic, you can find her on LinkedIn. So, as I always say, isn't this just a fabulous panel? I know that there are going to be gems dropped left, right, and center. So let's dive right in. A big shout out to all those who have joined us. Thank you very much for being here. Elma, great to see you online. Thank you for joining us. Ms. Nduta, great to see you online as well. Thank you for joining us. If you are here, say hello so that we can say hello back as we continue with the conversation. John, the one gentleman in the room, let me allow you to go first. I want us to set the context when we talk about anxiety. So there's a level of anxiety that people experience on a regular basis in life and work. I feel anxious, as I interact with new people, maybe at a function I attend, and I don't really know anyone, right? And that's just the regular amounts of anxiety that people may feel. But then there are levels of anxiety that are debilitating, and individuals who suffer from this type of anxiety find themselves struggling to cope. I want us to set the conversation. If you can please explain the difference between these two types of anxiety so that we're clear about what we are talking about when we discuss anxiety as a mental illness.
Thank you very much. I think to start with, I would say that we all feel anxious in one way or the other. What matters is the intensity of anxiety. Just like in our culture, we say that every home has a level of smoke. The density is what matters. So if one has had an experience whereby, let me start by saying that anxiety checks in when we're in a situation that we can't understand and our security is threatened. So the response that we have is anxiety, fear, and worry. Now, we also need to trace it back to our life experiences because anxiety is a normal response in a situation that is abnormal. And sometimes what happens is that we have created thought patterns or interpretation of situations and circumstances based on our life experiences, and most of the time coming from our childhood experiences. So it is what the difference is you will experience anxious moments and when there is excessive fear, worry, and panic attacks, now that requires attention from a professional. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. I like what you said, that anxiety is a normal response to a situation that is abnormal. I think that it's important to start there, because sometimes when we find ourselves anxious and overly anxious, we may begin to treat ourselves as though the way we are behaving is abnormal. It is a normal response. I think the issue is learning how to navigate that normal response. But first, it's allowing yourself to feel that emotion and not judging yourself for feeling that emotion, rather exploring it to understand what exactly it entails. Thank you very much for sharing that. Dr. Scholastic, I want to come to you next. Statistics show that anxiety is the most common form of mental illness, but many people aren't aware that they may suffer from anxiety, or they don't know how to describe what it is they are suffering from. What are some of the symptoms that a person suffering from anxiety may exhibit?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mucha, for that question. Again, as John has said, it is a normal response to something that is abnormal, and even fearing what has not happened. So when we look at the symptoms of anxiety, it moves along a continuum from very mild to the extreme, probably extreme reactions. Now, what are some of these symptoms at the work? Probably before I look at the workplace, we might have both physical and emotional symptoms. Sometimes lack of sleep is a reaction. You come from work, you cannot sleep. You keep dreaming about the workplace, because I want to zero in at the workplace, since we are talking about anxiety at the workplace. You come from the workplace, you cannot sleep. And if you catch some sleep, you are dreaming about that boss, you are dreaming about that office mate of yours. That could be a symptom of anxiety. Not completing tasks could also be a symptom of anxiety. Or if you tend to complete the tasks, you do not do them to your utmost best. And then, as you have said, you start now blaming yourself. You feel like you are now a failure. Yet it is simply because of anxiety that you have not performed to your utmost best. There are times when you also feel on Friday, probably if you work from Monday to Friday, on Friday you have that aha moment of, thank God it is Friday. And then when you wake up on Monday, oh my God, this is another Monday. That could be a symptom that something is not working well. Then again, at the workplace, we have issues of role conflict, role ambiguity. You keep on meddling in other people's roles without keeping to your lane. At times, it could also be a symptom of anxiety. There are assignments you've been given and you cannot even start them. You keep procrastinating. That could also be a symptom of anxiety. Sometimes you have heart palpitations. You don't know why the heart is racing. You don't know where it is going. At times you see somebody and you start sweating aimlessly. It is not that you are any petoposal or menopausal, but it is simply because there is some kind of or some level of anxiety within you. And at times we even have people sweating, the palms keep sweating, or the palms are too cold, and it is not a natural thing. It's simply because probably they are anxious, fearful of something that is going to happen. Other times it could be that you do not want to receive any feedback from anybody, so you are quite defensive. Anybody who wants to give you any feedback, you feel like it is an attack on your job or an attack on your capability to work. And if there is any feedback you are also giving, it is negative feedback. So anytime you start feeling like the workplace there is giving you negative emotions and you are also responding negatively to the workplace, it could have its genesis in anxiety. Thank you so much.
Wow, wow. As I always say, I'm just always amazed at the wealth of knowledge that comes from our panelists. Thank you very much, Dr. Scholar, for that insight. I smiled when you said that, Friday comes and you're thinking, hallelujah. I mean, I know we all like Friday. We all look forward to the weekend, but I agree there could be some level of, euphoria that comes that is beyond the normal excitement about the weekend. And equally with that, I can imagine a level of dread, that occurs on Sunday. As Sunday progresses, you find that you have a knot in your stomach and you really cannot go back to work on the following day. I have an experience where I actually quit my job because I realized that it was beginning to influence my mental health and I was sliding into depression. And so I can resonate with that feeling of Sunday as Sunday progresses, getting a knot in my stomach and really beginning to dread the following day and walking into the office and just feeling as though I just don't think I could cope. So a lot of those things you talked about, I can resonate maybe not a lot, but some of those things you talked about, I can resonate with them based on my own personal experience. So thank you so much for sharing. Welcome if you've just joined us. It's great to have you here. Don't forget, say hello in the comments, whether you're with us on YouTube or on LinkedIn, say hello so that we can say hello right back. We are with my esteemed panel and we're talking about managing anxiety at work. So far, we've talked about what anxiety is and we've talked about what it looks like so that you can have an awareness of what anxiety entails. Sharon, I want to come to you as someone who's in charge of people at your organization, Mr. Green Africa, as someone who's looking out for the well-being of people. What has been your experience of anxiety in the workplace? How has it manifested itself? So possibly something you've seen as the person in charge of people, or indeed even previously when you've interacted with colleagues. Being someone who's a high in empathy, I know that you take on a role of looking out for others. So where have you seen anxiety, and how have you handled cases where an individual's ability to deliver has been impacted? How have you supported them? What advice have you given them? And then, Sharon, as you talk about that, let me throw in something else. How do you ensure that these are genuine cases? It's important to take care of the mental well-being of staff, but I'm sure there are individuals who would take advantage of the goodwill that you would extend to them. So how do you then manage ensuring that you provide support to the staff, but at the same time, you're aware that this is a genuine case? Sharon, over to you.
All right, that's quite a packed question, set of questions, but I want to also build up on what Scholar said. Recently I was having a conversation with a friend of mine who transitioned from one organization to the other. And 3 months in, she's still dreaming about her old boss. She called and said, hey, I dreamt about so-and-so the other day, and they were bashing me for not getting work done. And you can just imagine what kind of anxiety this person had, and even carried it to the new workplace. Yeah. So in my interactions with people at the workplace, and I have seen anxiety play out itself in different ways. So I work in a high pressure manufacturing environment. And what this means for us is targets, KPIs, targets, numbers, targets, production, targets, revenue. And what this means is people are always on the run to get things going. So here I've seen two sets of people, people on the production floor, people on the office staff. For the office, I've seen a lot of biting of nails. I've seen a lot of inability to relax. So someone is seated, in a second they'll stand up, they'll spend almost half the day doing nothing because they're just up and down, trying to manage what they're feeling. Sometimes they don't know what's going on. Sometimes it's silence. So someone will come to work, not say hi to anyone, keep quiet the whole day, earphones. Sometimes it's just profuse sweating, and it's you try shake someone's hand and they're sweating. You can see it on their face. You can actually even see it I've seen someone sweating on their eyebrows and things like that. And even in our environment, even worse, it can lead to incidences, So we work in a place where if you're not careful, there's definitely going to be incidents. If you're anxious and you're on the production floor, a machine is running. You either need to stop it, it could lead to incidences, high incidents, and sometimes even, fatal, if not controlled. So yes, so anxiety plays itself out in different ways in different people. And as John said, anxiety is normal. And how it comes about is, long work hours, toxic workplace, loads and loads of pressure from work. People are feeling overwhelmed. I remember in one of the sessions we ran here at work, and we ran a random mentee questionnaire asking people how you're feeling today in last month, one of our get-togethers, and a lot of people said overwhelmed. Yeah, so those things cause anxiety. And so in my role here to support, how do I support these people? So constant conversations. How are you feeling today? And one of our values here at Mr. Green is genuine. So we want genuine conversations. If someone asks, how are you today? It's not just fine and walking away. It's I'm okay. I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm tired, I can't do this. And there's a culture here of, okay, you can't do this, how can I support you? Do you want to go home, work later? What we try and encourage people to work in that kind of environment and get things done. So we also encourage for safe banter, call out each other wherever necessary, call out and just joke about things, speak out to encourage, apart from just speaking out to tell on people when things are going wrong, also speak out and say how you're feeling. And then we also try and celebrate everyone. In industries like ours, there are people who could be, there could be a very high disparity between office people and people who are casuals and working on the floor. So we encourage and try support everyone. So if it's birthdays, okay, whose birthday was it this month? So we'll celebrate people. We acknowledge you here. We acknowledge your work that you do for us. We try and once a month we come together. Everyone should leave their desks for 1 hour. Thursdays, once a month, we come, we either play a game, we either talk about things that relate to us, general trivia questions, get into groups, whose team won, just for people to kind of decompress and just kind of forget all the pressures of work. So it's the small things for us and the support we give to our staff. At the beginning of every meeting, we ask, what's your best, we call it segue. So our segue is best professional news, best personal news. So what in the past week, what's the best thing that happened to you? Yeah. So we also encourage that openness of people knowing each other, their families. How can we support? And encouraging people to speak out a bit more. I've seen people call out each other, hey, you're anxious, it's time to go for lunch. You've been working too long, let's take a walk. We also encourage people to take meetings on the walk. So instead of sitting down with laptops, let's have a conversation, walk to the end of the factory and come back, finish your meeting, sit down, continue working. So it's the small things for us that we keep pushing for as a people department and asking people to kind of relax and go home, come back, sleep enough. I've seen people send emails at 2 a.m. So it's just encouraging people, okay, did you have to? Is it that you slept during the day and you had to send emails at 2 a.m.? So it's those kinds of conversations that we're also trying to have. Other than that, we definitely have people who take advantage of the fact that we care about people. And unfortunately, especially the very young generation who are, we call Gen Zs now, we have seen that a lot at our workplace. So you'd have performance issues, and when you talk to someone about it, they'd throw a fist and say, hey, you're affecting my mental health. You can't talk to me like that, just because you called them out on performance or you corrected them in a way, and they say, I'm anxious, I'm this and this, but they didn't say it all through. And they take advantage of the fact that you're calling them out for work that they should have done. So in such a case, what do? We walk that journey with them. Okay, you say you're anxious. At that moment, don't come back and say, okay, you acknowledge what they feel. And so the next day you check in on them. Okay, how are you feeling today? Okay, are you able to perform your duties? Okay, can we move with the KPI? Okay, can you work? Okay, how can we do this? So it's just, for us, it's working with people and checking in. We recognize that it's very high pressure for us, and working with people is what will help us. Yeah.
Couldn't find the unmute button. Thank you very much, Sharon, for sharing those insights. What strikes me from what you've said, Sharon, is that you are doing a myriad of small things that are pushing the needle as far as creating a safe space for the team. And I think that that's really profound for anyone who's listening, who's either in the people space or an employee, that sometimes it's the little things that we do that can make a difference. I think a lot of times we think that it will require a big deal, getting in a consultant who will do an assessment. And I'm not saying that that's not necessary at times, but some of the small things make a difference. I really like what you said around, calling each other out and being each other's keeper when you notice that someone perhaps is a little anxious and someone is seeming a little stressed. Being the one who encourages them to behave differently. So thank you very much for sharing those insights. And I could see that Scholar and John were smiling as you were sharing. Perhaps Scholar and John, I want to come to you maybe more from as people who are specialists in this area. What advice would you give to an HR or a people person like Sharon around anything else over and above what Sharon has mentioned? So, John, let me come to you first, and then Scola. Looking at this now from a professional perspective, as psychologists, as counselors, is there anything else that you would add that people, managers can focus on in order to cultivate an environment that is supportive to their people? So, John, over to you first.
Thank you. I think I would start by, sorry. Okay, great. I think I would start by saying, Sharon, you're doing a great job. The only way you can express and manifest what you have done is because you're a functional human being in such a situation. And one of the things I would say is that having ability not to take away someone's choice is actually the best way to go about it. Because as a supervisor, when you find that a young person is behaving that way and it triggers something in you, either you get angry, you overreact, then that means you also need help. It's only that you manifest it in a different way. Then the other thing is you find in our organizations, we all have ability to make a choice. And that ability is ability that can be nurtured. And so when we nurture that in our organizations, we are empowering this employee to make decisions, to make informed decisions, and also to have that ability whereby they are compassionate towards self and towards others. And so the other thing I would say is that as an organization, it's very good to promote human connection. And try as much as you can, whether you're a supervisor, whether you're an employee, or any stakeholder, you should make sure that you evaluate yourself and see whether there are levels of manipulation, intimidation, and even control that would make this person say what they are saying. Because our interpretation of people's response most of the time is based on what we have gone through in life, our own life experiences. And what I always say is that to enjoy music, let's say there is a DJ, the transitions that's what matters. When transitioning from one song to another song. And you can imagine in a room where you're playing reggae, rumba, any other genre you can think about, and they are all playing at the same time. You actually need to have a sequence and a flow so that you can enjoy music. So in an organization, it's the same thing. You need, as a supervisor, you need to step on the balcony and see how people are dancing in your organization. And you ask yourself, this person is dancing to, let's say, reggae, this other one is dancing to another type of music, and how can we bring them together? And lastly, I would say that people come from homes, and different homes, we have different situations. And sometimes when they come to work and realize that there is no human connection, they will try create situations where they are trying to preserve themselves. And so we should look at it as an environment where we are not only supervising people, but you're also nurturing them. And to nurture people, we must align our organizational norms and being aware that we are coming with different social norms as individuals in an organization. And let us focus more also on affirming, because I have never seen anyone who is always criticized making an effort to grow. I think it's also good to catch people when they're doing good things and celebrating them for what they have done. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Yes, Dr. Scola, yes, go ahead.
Let me pick up from John. Just the last statement that he has said, people come from different homes, and therefore people also are likely to bring baggage from home to the workplace. So at times the source of the anxiety might not even be the workplace. It might be away from the workplace, but they elicit the symptoms at the workplace because they are coming from different environments. So just checking checking on them, how they are, is very important. And I like what you are doing. And then the other thing is when people report on duty, probably the first time during their orientation, it is always good to know their personalities, because there are some personalities that are prone to anxiety more than others. There are others, probably their social personalities, and they would work best in a social environment. Probably they're a bit, for lack of a better term, noisy. They like working with music. And then you are giving them an office to share with somebody who does not like music at all. That becomes, the office mate has done nothing to them, but the office mate becomes a source of anxiety to them, because they find that the place is too quiet for them. So just knowing a bit of their anxiety, their personalities, will be good to know how even to couple them up, to know even if somebody might not be a particular, might not be good at a particular department, but they can offer some music to that department, lighten the department, and the department moves on. The other thing that, so orientation, during orientation, personality testing is very, very important. And you don't need the psychological tests, just grouping them, knowing who are the sociable ones, knowing who are the personality A's, who are just straight on the job, and that is it. At least that grouping will help you know whom to turn to help another team. And then anxiety is also known to be caused by gender, age, work experience, and even academic qualifications. So Sharon talked of the young generation being a bit anxious. You see, the young generation, they are anxious, yes, because they want quick fix monies. What is this in for me? Can I make as much money as possible? And at times, yes, they are at their workplace, but they are elsewhere, trying to connect with the Uber man, they have been told the Uber has gotten an accident and all that. Why? Because they're fixing. They want to really get a lot of money. So this is a generation to watch, so that at least they go slow. That fast pace can make them to be so anxious. And then again, we find that fathers become more anxious than, and John is here, they become more anxious than the ladies. As ladies, we talk about our issues. We'll complain about the boss. I'll work from my office, go to Mucha's office, and when I come back, I'm okay. But John wants to be that man that the African culture has told to be. So he dies with his issues. He feels so bad, but he doesn't talk about it because he wants to be the man that the society expects. So at the end of the day, you find that the male man suffers more at the workplace than even the female. And then when they go home, remember their fathers. And as a mother there, I'm asking, ulikuja na sukari? Did you come with the sugar I told you? So there is both anxiety at the workplace, and even as they are there, they are also wondering, what will I tell my wife when I go home? What will I tell my children when I go home? So gender is another issue that they just need a kind of assurance when they are moving through or working at the workplace. And then when we talk about education, or work experience first, you'll realize that, again, people who have worked and they are almost going to retirement or exiting the profession, they are very anxious, and they are people to watch because they can easily make very many mistakes. They do not know about tomorrow. They do not know if they left their jobs today, where do they go? So at times, just preparing them for future is also very, very important. And in education, making people accept who they are, their levels of education without comparison, and just assuring them that you have what it takes. That's why you are here. It doesn't matter whether you have a certificate or a diploma or whatever you have. you have what it takes. That's why the company took you on board. So that assurance alone can make people's anxiety levels to come down. Thank you, Mucha.
Wow, thank you. Thank you very much for sharing. And so, Sharon, as I'm listening, I'm just thinking, hey, the job of a people manager, the job of an HR department is so encompassing, because you really do have to have a good understanding of your people so that you can provide the best possible support to them. But I like a lot of the initiatives you shared where people are given the space to talk about what it is they're going through, so that you can support them to navigate it. So thank you very much, John and Scholar, for adding to some of the things that we need to bear in mind as organizations so that we can provide support to our teams. John, I want to come back to you. Our daily lifestyle plays a critical role in impacting our mental health. What are some of the lifestyle triggers that can lead to high anxiety levels? And John, as you answer that, let me just take a moment to say hello. There's a few more people who've said hi. Clayton, it's great to have you here. Thank you very much for joining us. Deli Rebecca, thank you very much for joining us as well. It's great to have you online. John, over to you.
Thank you. I think we can categorize this into two. We have personal, and then we have organizational. And for personal, it can be something as simple as a misfit. I like what Scholar said, because last week I had a case of an employee somewhere who works well by having monologues, whereby self-instructing while working. But now there's someone else in the office who was saying that this employee is a nuisance, and so they needed to be given their own office. But now the management had a different view, because the employee who self-instructs is the best performing employee. And when I had this conversation, this person said that self-instructing, when they're having the monologues, it is self-affirming, whereby I move from this, I go to this other one. And so there can be such conflict in the organization based on how we function as human beings. And sometimes, because we live in and I want to tie this to what we've been talking about Gen Z, we live in a society of isolation, whereby the more isolated you are, we think the better it is, and the more competitive you are, we think the better it is. And so we don't prioritize human connection. And so we rarely celebrate how different we are in our organizations. And so some of the things can be simply our conversations at work. Then the other thing can be diet, what we are taking, like now high intake of coffee, as Scholar said, can trigger that. And the other thing is how we manage our own situations. And it can be time management, or even how we talk to our friends. And for the organization, it can be organizational norms. Because for organizational norms, like now, I like what Sharon said, because in the organization, what they are doing, they're promoting adaptability and collaboration in the organization. But you'll find an institution where it's all about competition, whereby the organization promotes individual competition and not teamwork. And in such an organization, you'll find that they don't have consensus when it comes to dealing with situations and circumstances. And with that, people end up experiencing anxiety, because you are made to feel that you're responsible. You're responsible of how other people feel, how they behave, and what they think about you. And that is not your responsibility. And then the institutions where employees are also turned to be their bosses' caregivers. So you're there to manage how your boss is feeling today. And sometimes sometimes the supervisor or even the boss will come in angry. And so it changes the mood in the organization. And sometimes you'll hear people saying, are we about to be fired today? And maybe another person will say, I don't know what is going on with him. And so in such a situation, it promotes rumors in the organization. Now, that lifestyle where there is uncertainty in the organization creates turmoil for the people. Then the other thing is how issues are handled in an institution, especially organizations where there are no policies. And so you find people are dealt with in a way that is not standardized. Like the HR would say that if you have done this is how we approach the situation. And lastly, I would say managing conflict, and most importantly, conflict within. What are we telling ourselves? The conversations we are having about ourselves. When you go to work and you're coming from work, what is this conversation that you have about yourself? And sometimes I find that quite a number of people, they don't even wait for that time we have appraisals. They start appraising themselves in the morning before they get to the office. And then lunch hour, they're also appraising themselves. And in the evening, they're doing the same. And in such a situation, you'll find that it's an organization, or it is a society where they have issues with norm fit. The norms are not. There's no cohesion in that institution. And having said all that, you will realize that our responses are actually dictated by our life experiences. And sometimes, let's say you have joined a new organization, you might actually bring interpretation of issues that you had from another organization, whereby if you find the boss is dressed in, let's pick a color, black, you're like, today we are going to be paid. Or you find the boss is dressed in cream, and you're like, I think today we are going to the field. And so you start interpreting situations and circumstances based on the experiences that you had in another organization. And lastly, I would say the experiences that we had with our own parents, because our interpretation of a social authority is based on how we were raised, and whether it was it was an environment where you are allowed to share your views, and then you are in an environment where you're supposed to follow orders and you can't question anything. And so in such a situation where you're trying to align yourself, it becomes an issue. And so a lifestyle can be a behavior, response in behavior. It can be what we are taking. Lifestyle can be how we handle conflict, and it can also be how the amount of time we are taking to sleep and self-care, because sometimes you are trying to gain approval from your boss that you deny yourself a chance to grow and to take care of yourself. And that is where I say, always make sure that you affirm your employees that they are not in charge of how you think, how you feel, and how you behave. And simply, if it is work, do it from a place of human connection. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing. Beware of what you consume, beware of the conversations at work, and beware of how you manage your time generally. I know one of the areas that I'm struggling with lately is on sleep. I just seem to have so much work, and it has really impacted my sleep. And I realize that I actually need to cut down on the amount of things I'm committing myself to so that I can get good sleep. Because when I'm tired, I notice that I don't show up as the best version of myself. And I can imagine those that I lead may be impacted. I really like what you said, John, around the importance of leaders helping their team to understand that they are not responsible for how the leader feels. I think that's powerful. That is a powerful, powerful perspective, because far too often that is the reality in teams, that when the leader is doing badly, all of us, we're suffering the consequence. So I think that's a really powerful reflection as well. So thank you very much for sharing that. Sharon, let me come to you. We are talking about managing anxiety at work, and we've shared some of the ways that anxiety manifests itself, right? And we've talked about this a little, but I want us to expand further. What advice can you give to HR managers and organizations that are keen to support their employees' mental health, and more particularly support employees who suffer from anxiety attacks? And as you share your response to that, let me just encourage those who are tuned in. We will do a Q&A coming up shortly. So if you do have any questions, please share them in the comments so that my panel can answer them. If you have a question for a particular panelist, you're welcome to share it and indicate that it's for a particular panelist. Otherwise, I'll present the question to all the panel. So Sharon, what advice would you give someone who's sitting here thinking, oh my goodness, yes, where I'm struggling. I don't even know what to do. I don't know where to go. What advice would you give them?
All right. As a leader, one of the things you need to recognize is that you're leading a team, not from a robotic perspective. You're human, right? So acknowledge that the people that you're leading, the people that you're working with are human. One of the interesting things I learned in the past month, when actually during the mental health month, was an employee suffering from any mental health issue affects 7 people around them. So I will come to work, I will affect the procurement person, the finance person, someone in manufacturing, 7 people around me. So that means my output at work will affect 7 other people. So how can we support someone going through this? First, be aware of the signs. Look at the people around you. And as an HR person or as a person who leads a team, what are you approachable? I guess it starts with us, right? Acknowledge that you're working with human beings. Are you approachable? Are you open to having conversations with these people that you're leading? And then be aware of the signs. Is someone acting out of the ordinary? Is this something you haven't seen before? Are they now coming late to work? They never used to do that. Are they now biting their fingernails? They never used to do that. Are they erratic? And start noticing and being aware of the signs around you. So I would say be aware of the signs, and then having high awareness of your surroundings does not need anything special, or doesn't need for you to go to school, and it just needs you to pause. Just pause and observe. All right. As a leader, don't be erratic. Just observe. Think about it. Why is this person reacting like this? For those of us who are parents, if your child behaves a certain way, it's because of something, right? It's because it's a ripple effect, I would say. So if a child is being erratic, it's either they're hungry. Think of an infant. They're hungry, they've soiled their diapers, they're sick. So look at the underlying factor. What is the sign behind what is bringing up this sign? So this headache that I have, why am I feeling this headache? So look even for that around your employees and the people around you. And then manage it now in a humane way, especially if you're a leader. Manage it in a humane way. Yeah, we all know that quote that people will forget what you said to them, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. So handle people in a humane way. If someone is going through moments of stress, don't add it to them. Don't be the one to add pressures to them. Try and help them navigate this emotion. So this is what I would say to all managers or all HR people: bring in the humane aspect in leading teams.
Yeah. We call it human resources, but we forget that it's a human resource. Yes, John, you wanted to add something. Go ahead.
Yes, it's something that Sharon has mentioned about being erratic. As a leader, when you find yourself being erratic, it's actually about power. It has nothing to do with how people are behaving around you, and so it is an essence of losing power. And so that is the response you have, is being erratic. And I think it's important to try arrest yourself, or let me not use arrest, that sounds a bit harsh. Try catch yourself. try catch yourself, and ask yourself questions. Why am I erratic? Why am I shouting? And I remember in psychosocial support, we were supporting this group in one of the counties. And I remember, while having this baraza, one of the employees uh, asked one of the leaders, why do you shout at us? Is it that when you look at us, we become small, or is it that our hearing has issues? And so it's good to ask ourselves, when we are reacting in our organizations, what is it that we fear? Because we shout and we become erratic in a situation that we don't understand. And instead of seeking understanding in that situation, we try to silence the situation. And silencing the situation, we will raise our voice, or sometimes we will walk away. And other times, we will just give people silent treatment. And by doing so, what happens is it creates chaos in that organization, because you are actually affecting people's self of security in that institution, or even those that you're working with. And this can also be at home, where you're having a conversation with your children, or maybe your relatives, and you're shouting at them. And the other thing is, where there is no human connection, you'll always find that people are angry. And it's simply because there's no love, there's no compassion. And most of the time, we fail to express compassion because we also don't love ourselves. And this is what I tell people: prioritize loving yourself, being comfortable within your skin as a leader, so that when you're dealing with other people, you're dealing with them from a place of love and ability to make choice, that you understand what is happening within you. And by understanding what is happening within you, you can create room to understand what is happening in other people's lives. Thank you.
Fantastic, John. I love that reflection that you've shared, especially when you talk about the idea of loving yourself. I think that self-awareness for me is one of the most critical skills for leaders. I always say that self-awareness is the first and most important step towards being able to deliver fully as a leader, towards being able to achieve your goals, because it's only as we have that self-awareness that we recognize these default tendencies. Earlier, John, you talked about the fact that the things we do are in relation to our upbringing and our experiences. We like to think of people as an iceberg. We use the analogy of an iceberg to describe people. And basically what we're saying is that what lies beneath the surface is what lies under the waterline. And that's what actually drives what lies above the surface. So we see shouting in a person. We see this person expressing themselves by shouting. And what that speaks to is, as John says, the loss of control they feel beneath the surface that's manifesting itself that way. And so when we're able to do the work as leaders of digging beneath the surface to understand ourselves, to understand what our triggers are, to understand why we respond the way we do, we actually lead more effectively, and we're able to cultivate an environment that is safer for our teams. Thank you very much for these amazing gems that are being shared here. I'm looking at the time and I cannot believe that we only have 30 minutes left. We're coming up shortly to a Q&A. So if you do have any questions, please share them in the comments, whether you're joining us on LinkedIn or on YouTube. Share your questions and we will share them with the team. Esther, you are very welcome to the session. I just want to share this comment by Clayton before I come to you, Scholar, with another question. Someone mentioned to me that human has been removed from human resources, and what has remained is just the resource, which has removed the humanity on how HR departments are managing people resources in the organizations. And this speaks to the point you made, Sharon, that at the end of the day, the best way to support our teams is to recognize that they are human beings. For the longest time, we have spread this lie that when you come to work, you must leave your emotions at the door. And yet my emotions are an integral part of who I am. rather than asking me to leave them at the door, what we should be doing is supporting our people to be able to navigate what they are feeling effectively. Scholar, let me come to you before we open up for our Q&A if there are any questions. What are some of the steps one can take after realizing that they may be suffering from higher than average levels of anxiety? So we talked earlier about the fact that there's some levels of anxiety that are, the usual part and parcel of the day, right? That those butterflies or that churning in my stomach before I make a presentation. If I'm able to navigate through that and make my presentation, all well and good. But there are some levels of anxiety that mean I suddenly become tongue-tied. I can't even speak. I'm sweating. All those, descriptions that you gave earlier. What are some of the steps a person can take in order to navigate these levels of anxiety that can be debilitating?
Thank you, Mucha. And there are very many steps that somebody can try to use. But the first thing that I would want to say is what you have just said, self-awareness. Being aware of who you are, being aware of what you are able to do in that company, being aware of even what you cannot be able to do, much as it is your work, but you cannot be able to do it. So that self-awareness is very, very important. And once somebody is self-aware, they'll be able to deal with even their weaknesses in a company. Because if I'm self-aware and I know that I have a problem, I have a challenge, probably when it comes to this issue, that acceptance alone is very important, because I will know where to go for help. I'll know whom to ask for that kind of support. So being aware is very, very important. And also being aware will help you that when somebody gives you feedback, you know how to take it. You take it positively. You know, yes, it is a negative feedback, but you take it as if it is building you up. So being self-aware is the first thing. The second thing is knowing your threshold. How much can you handle? And how much are you not able to handle? What are your strengths? When are you able to do your utmost best? When can you be able to give the best to the company? Some people are morning people. Others are afternoon people. When others are going home, that is when they become very active. So are we able in a company to accommodate all these people, the morning people, the afternoon people, and even the evening people? That's probably those are the ones who send to Sharon emails at 2 a.m., and you wonder, has this person slept? But probably we just need to tap into the strengths of these people. The other thing is checking on your work-life balance, because anxiety, work-life balance has a lot of contribution to anxiety. Are you a person who realizes that there are some aspects of you that are interfering with other aspects? I might probably just be concentrating on one aspect of my life, and it is not making me whole. And then I give very little to other aspects. So work-life balance is very, very important. The other thing is realizing if you have some elements of perfection and you are driving yourself to limits that probably you cannot be able to achieve, or driving other people. It is worse if the boss is a perfectionist, because people will run, and you might drive people and not see the humanness in them, but see the machine in them, see the goals that have to be achieved. So knowing that yes, perfectionism is okay, but it has its limits is very, very important. Also seeking support. Yeah, seeking support from other people and accepting my condition the way I probably, if I'm feeling anxious today, asking myself, calling myself to a meeting, why am I anxious? What is it that is making me anxious? What is the trigger for this anxiety? So that I can be able to seek the support. Some people do not seek for the support. Also knowing what it is that you bring to the company. There are times We are in the company, but we are not part and parcel of that company. We are disconnected. So we do not feel as if we are part and parcel of that company. So what is it that I'm bringing to this company? And what is it that the company is able to bring to me? So my idea is always that you must grow the company and the company must grow you. If you are not growing the company, then you have no business being there. And if the company is also not growing you, then you have no business being there. It might be a very good job, but it is not your niche. Therefore, it is always good to see what kind of growth am I getting. The other thing is you can reorganize your schedule so that you know when you can be able to give your best. And that particular time, do your best. And if you cannot cope completely, then seek professional help. Many times we have a problem as psychologists that people self-diagnose. They say they have anxiety, and we ask, how do you know that you have anxiety? It might be fear. It might be a phobia. So it is along the continuum, yes. But when you go to the over-the-counter drugs and you are asking for anxiety drugs, remember, as a pharmacist, I'm in business. True, I'll give you the drug, but do you know whether it is the right drug? Because there are drugs also, true, there are anxiety drugs, but they will cause you more anxiety. So self-medication is very dangerous. And the quick fix things that we have these days is that people want to self-medicate. It is very dangerous to self-medicate. So if you are having some bout of anxiety, it is always good to seek a professional help. And the professional help that you'll seek, at times, as a therapist, I'll give you the help. At times, the level of that anxiety will make me refer you to a psychiatrist. So there are times when we need a psychiatrist. There are times when we don't need a psychiatrist. So it is always just good to seek professional help so that you know where you lie and how you can be assisted. Sometimes you can just be assisted in the company. It's okay. Singing is also another thing. If you are good in singing, sing. If you are good in dancing, dance. Do some relaxation exercise. It's a medicine for anxiety. Just breathing in, taking deep breaths, and probably 5 times or 50 times in a day is good for you because it is a relaxation exercise. So when you are aware of who you are, you will know what best relaxes you. Sometimes a power nap at that lunch hour, when people want to relax under the shade, it's good for you. If you are a power nap person, I personally sleep for 15 minutes. And when I wake up, I'm energized enough to do the work I want. So what is it that you can be able to use for relaxation? For some people, that music or dance might be a stressor instead of a relaxer. So just finding out what it is that is good for you. And it starts with knowing yourself and asking yourself again pertinent questions. What is it that I can do? What is it that other people can do for me today? What is it that can wait? And what is it that I can completely forget as I work in this company? Finally, don't run on empty. It is dangerous to be in a company and you are running on empty. Thank you, Mucha.
Wow, 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 wow. I think that list is so exhaustive. And wildest dreams, I see that your question was how to deal with anxiety. So I hope that you have already been answered by what Dr. Scholar has already shared. One of the things you said really resonated with me, Dr. Scholar, is this idea of having a meeting with yourself. I think that this is so, so important. Often we operate on autopilot. We're not paying attention to the messages that are coming from ourselves. Our emotions were designed to assist us to live life. And often we are not paying attention. Those signs of stress It's your emotions telling you that there is too much burden on you and you need to relieve that burden. But rather than pay attention to that emotion, we suppress it, we ignore it, we deny it, and it builds and builds and builds until we crash. And so I think that this idea of having a meeting with yourself should be one that's regular. I always encourage leaders, especially, that on a monthly basis, you should schedule time for a meeting with yourself just to assess where you are and how you are doing. John, I don't know if you wanted to add. I saw you smiling and nodding
Yes.
along as Paula was sharing. Please go ahead.
I think it's there's an exercise we had a few months ago on polarities and perfection versus excellence, and you find that perfectionism is rooted in fear and judgment, fear of judgment and disapproval, and so our society rewards perfectionism, but we fail to realize that perfectionism is not equal to excellence in skill. And so you'll find, as I said, perfectionism is rooted in fear of judgment and disapproval, which is rooted in our childhood experiences. Because having grown in a situation or an environment, can be parents or can be teachers who disapprove. And a recent case that we had was of a child who ran away from school simply because they felt they were being pushed harder to become the best in the country. And the question was, for who? Is it for the teacher? Is it for the parents? Is it for the child? And so most of the time we will push and employ our perfectionism in other people's lives. And I want to celebrate one of my friends who was able to identify this earlier in life. And they're able to catch themselves whereby they're not seeking approval from the employees they are working with as a source of their affirmation, but empowering people towards excellence. Then the other thing I want to mention is in a situation of anxiety and conflict in an institution, sometimes we miss the needs in a conflict. And if we can be able to identify needs in a conflict that has created anxiety, then it will be easy to address that. Because if it's a situation where in your organization there is contempt, then what you're missing, the need that is not being met, is dignity. And if there is resentment, then the need that you're missing is respect. And if there is gossip in an organization, then the need that is not being met is compassion. And so, where there is anxiety and conflict, let us identify what is happening and the needs that we need to address, so that we don't miss the presenting opportunities, even in our anxious moments. Then the other thing for individual, when you feel anxious, that moment when you're having a meeting with yourself, journey within compassionately, not from a place of judgment, because you can actually judge yourself and feel bad that you're feeling anxious, and that makes it even worse. And so try be compassionate towards yourself and journey within, dignifying your experiences and accepting that this is the reality and this is how I need to deal with it. And lastly, I would say utilize your leave days well. The organization, or even whether you're a founder or whether you're an employee, your organization is not a mountain to die on. Because and if you have a cross that you have created for yourself, calm down, give people the wood. It's cold, we need fire. So make sure that you utilize your leave days well. You can take one day a week just to rest. And sometimes we feel guilty resting, because in some of the institutions, we are made to feel like we are losing out just because we don't have information about a certain agenda. And if you're a leader, make sure that you create realistic goals that will help people not be anxious, but be confident that they can grow under your watch. Thank you.
I am really loving the insights that are dropping here. Thank you so much for sharing these amazing insights. Wildest Dreams, I trust that you've had the tips that you can utilize to navigate anxiety, because that's the question that you had shared. As we continue with our Q&A, I want to go to another question that's come here from Natasha. This question is directly to Sharon. Sharon, the question is, society pressure is a constant anxiety trigger for women, especially young career ladies. Society expects you to be a mom or to get married by a certain age or to be a wife and a working lady. What advice would you give a young lady, in their mid going through society's pressure? Yeah, so what advice would you give to a young lady to deal with this pressure that is what's inducing the anxiety? Sharon, your thoughts?
Thanks, Mucha. I think this is a very interesting question. And one of the first thing I would definitely say is expectations do not have to be your reality. It's not cast on stone. If I expect you to be a unicorn, you cannot be a unicorn. So if, it's the same. If someone says something to you, it doesn't have to be your reality. And so it has to come with a very strong will and power of self-awareness and EQ, I guess. And top three things that come to my mind about expectations and dealing with it and societal pressure. And I guess I've gone through it as well. You're expected to get married at a certain age. You're expected to be at a certain place in your career. And if it doesn't work, what do? Don't give yourself stress. Number one, pause, assess your emotions. Why am I feeling this? Why am I feeling so pressured to be at a certain place? Is it that you're being given the expectation and you're also adding to the expectation and giving yourself that pressure on the expectation? Just before responding impulsively or saying, yes, I will do it, take a few moments and understand why you're feeling how you're feeling. Is it that you actually want to be there? Or is it because you just don't want to be judged? So just figure it out. And you can communicate your boundaries very clearly. If you don't want to get married at 25, I don't want to get married at 25. Communicate that respectfully, I guess. And so once you've identified those emotions you're feeling, why am I feeling this? What is it that I truly want for myself? Yeah. So you can be firm, but polite and say things like, I don't want to do this because sometimes we don't even need to explain ourselves, Don't explain yourself if you don't have to. And sometimes it's to our parents or people that we respect. Respectfully say that I am of a different opinion. We'll see what works, but here is what my journey looks like in my head, and I'm working towards it. And then definitely find support. It could be from a trusted friend, it could be an adult, it could be a coach, it could be your mentor, especially in this career journey. And one thing about, generations, Scholar said something very interesting about generations and wanting different things. Something about millennials, I'm in that category. We want everything. So we're in a very interesting space because we're between Gen Zs and those who came before us. I forget the name. So those who came before us were a bit more patient than us, but they're able to get to the pension stage, amass, have wealth and things like that. And then there's the Gen Zs who want the quick fix. And we are a mix of that. We saw the internet age and we almost want pension plus quick fix all at the same time. So we are also in a generation that's confused about, okay, how do I make sure I've secured for the future? At the same time, how can I make sure it works? So don't even give yourself that pressure. So even in your career journey, speak to someone who's trusted. Get a coach, get a mentor who'll work with your journey. There are people who look at you and see you're really good at this, maybe take this direction. You're really good at administration, take this side. You're really good at executing, take a project management career path and things like that. So definitely don't accept pressure inside of societal pressure. It's definitely going to be there. So I'll definitely say, assess your emotions, assess where you're at, assess what you want, communicate your boundaries very clearly and very politely, and then find support. Thank you.
Thanks, Sharon. I really resonate. I may not be in those categories of millennial or anything like that, but I really do resonate with what you shared in response to Natasha's question, and especially around finding support. One of the things I realize is that sometimes we need to change who our comparisons are, if I'm making sense. So, sometimes we need to change the crowd that we are moving with, because perhaps the crowd we are moving with is the one that's giving us that pressure unnecessarily. I do know that pressure, especially as Africans, comes from our parents, comes from our aunties, especially those who are pushing on why you're not married, why you don't have children, why you don't have another child when you do have that one child. But pressure also comes from our peers. And sometimes we need to really have that meeting with yourself that Scholar talked about to determine whether it's time for, time to change who our audience are. John, there's a comment you've shared that's to us, but I think you should share it with everyone because it's a really profound comment. Just adding to what Sharon has said, please go ahead and say what you'd said in the private chat, John.
It's simply the expectations, and I like how Sharon put it. The expectation that the society has, one, they will always place something more. So you meet an expectation, they will place something else. And so always get to know what you're in control of and what you're not in control of. And what you're not in control of, don't try to explain yourself, because that erodes your self-confidence and your self-dignity, and can even make you doubt your own sanity, because you're wondering, am I good enough to be here? And sometimes as a lady, it's yesterday someone was asked, why are you not married? And you're getting old. And the response was, by getting married, will it stop me from aging? And so, and so it is, and so it is important to know what am I in control of and what am I not in control of. And the other thing is that there are organizations that adopt social expectations, whereby you make your institution to start competing with other institutions. And as a result of that, you're breaking people in the process, because you're trying to build the name of the institution at the expense of people's wellness. And that can also apply in your individual life, whereby you're trying to compete with someone. Like now, you find, especially for ladies, allow me to push that a bit. What happens with ladies is that when there are social expectations and you have tried to meet them and you're not able to progress, ladies will tend to pathologize themselves, whereby it opens a door for anxiety and also doubting yourself. And the other thing is that thinking that you don't have anything to offer. But the truth of the matter is, those are externals. The question is, what is happening internally? And one of the things I would say is that as a lady, create boundaries, whereby whatever you're told, whatever social expectation you hear, examine and question. And as you question, be compassionate towards yourself and make sure that dignity is of priority. And then the last thing I would say is that if someone is not able to control you, what happens is that they will create an expectation to show you that you're incompetent. And so be aware and be able to identify where there is control and where there is manipulation. And most importantly, prioritize your dignity, your growth, and understand that it is not your fault that you're not married. It is not your fault that all these things are happening. And last week, someone shared a document whereby when it comes to promotion, and this would go to HR departments, when it comes to promotion, you find that sometimes ladies get to suffer more. They don't get promoted as much, simply because when organizations are evaluating, they will look at a scholar or a Mucha. You have this number and Sharon, you have this number of children, and so we can't give you this role, because if we give you this role, you'll not be able to deliver because you have other responsibilities. And my question when we were having this conversation, I think it's the day before yesterday, how is it that we don't raise such issues when it comes to the other gender? And that is our gender as men. And so it's good as ladies to understand that there are things that you're in control of and there are things that you are not. Asante sana.
I think that ability to check in with what is in your locus of control and what isn't is really critical, so that we are able to relieve ourselves from the pressure of expectations that we cannot control. And as you've said here, Dr. Scholar, it's also important to ask yourself, why are you doing things? I think for me, what's critical then is having clarity on what it is that you want, what it is that you are chasing after, and not allowing the noise to distract you from that.
Sure.
And yeah, as Sharon says, politely but firmly setting those boundaries along the things that you're comfortable discussing. And so if you're not comfortable having a discussion about the fact that you're not yet married, or you don't have a child, or whatever it is that the pressure is building around, then you set those boundaries and let people know that these are not conversations you're comfortable having with them. And I know that pushback can be difficult, especially with our mothers, our aunties, those well-meaning women at church. But believe you me, once you've done it a couple of times, people do get the message. So thank you very much for it. What an amazing conversation. Time is flying by. I trust that you have found it as interesting and insightful as I have myself. I want to pause for a moment and let you know about our EQ training that's coming up next month. This training is designed for you if you want to develop greater self-awareness and an understanding of your levels of emotional intelligence. I mentioned earlier, and I think Scholar echoed the same sentiment, that everything starts with awareness, being aware of what lies beneath the surface. And so we would like to take you on a journey to help you connect with your emotions and develop the EQ superpower of self-awareness so that you can make better choices and show up more intentionally. We want to support you to be able to navigate your emotions, because knowing is not enough. Once you know, you need to be able to do something about it. So if you're interested in joining us for this next edition of the Insights for People Development, visit our website. We've shared the link in the comments. Visit our website so you can learn more about this program. It runs on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday for 2 hours, an hour and a half each of those days, from Tuesday, the 18th of July until Friday, the 21st of July. So please join us if you feel emotional intelligence is important for you. In addition to that, we want to kick off the second half of the year supporting you to develop your emotional intelligence. So I want to invite you to join me. Every Monday, we will be kicking off a journey, an awe-inspiring journey of EQ at work. So every Monday for 5 weeks, beginning on the 1st of July, you will have exclusive access to resources and tools as a result of being part of this 5-week journey that will help you to empower, to help you to build greater self-awareness, greater emotional regulation, conflict resolution, and a growth mindset. So don't miss out. You can follow me on LinkedIn. The team will share a link to my LinkedIn. If you're joining us from YouTube, you can check that out. Every Monday from next week, 1 o'clock, I'll be doing a live on LinkedIn, just taking you through this EQ challenge that we are on. So those are the ways that you can connect with us to develop greater emotional intelligence. As I mentioned, we have an EQ training mid-July and then throughout the month of July, so that you can support your building of this critical skill as we go into the second half of the year. Enough of that from me. Allow me to come to my panel and ask them to share their parting shots as we wind up our conversation. So, as we wind up our conversation, this is an EQ Lunch and Learn. So, how can emotional intelligence support you to navigate anxiety? How can emotional intelligence help you to navigate, the challenges of anxiety? So, I want to ask Sharon that question. Dr. Scholastic, as part of your parting shot, what coping mechanism could you give to someone? I'm having an anxiety attack in this moment. Maybe you could share briefly some 3 steps that I can take to help me navigate that. And then, John Wills, how can we make sure that we're talking more about the idea of mental health and how we can support each other to navigate mental health challenges? So, as you share your parting shot, if I can invite you, Sharon, first, then Scholastic, then John, to share your final reflections in response to those questions. Sharon, over to you.
All right, for me, it's self-awareness. Yeah, that's what I'll shout about. And having a high EQ does not mean you're not occasionally anxious or depressed. Actually, the person may be more vulnerable because they're now aware or in touch with uncomfortable emotions of what they're feeling. So a person with high EQ is often accountable because of a high self-awareness. And what that means is they'll be able to contemplate on possible mistakes, missteps, or miscommunications. So this is my parting shot. Be self-aware, know what's going on around you, know how you react to situations that get you anxious or fidgety in moments of stress. Yeah, and you'll be able to tolerate the uncomfortable emotions that come. Yeah, it allows you to have positive relationships. It allows you to grow. It allows you to have meaningful attachments. And although anxiety often accompanies such capacities, you'll realize that being self-aware and knowing what's going on in your environment, it will outweigh the feeling that comes with anxiety. Thank you so much, Mucha.
Thank you, Sharon. I can't, echo your sentiment enough. I really do believe that self-awareness is such a critical and often overlooked skill. So thank you for sharing. Scholar, over to you, your parting shot.
Thank you, Mucha. How do I cope with anxiety? The first thing is set realistic goals. Just set realistic goals, achieve small. And as you achieve small, you will be energized to grow more. So set realistic goals, set boundaries, and personalize the workplace. Let it be part and parcel of you. And my parting shot is that the workplace only employs the head, and the head controls the rest of the body. So if from my neck going up is not functional, then the workplace will spit me. So do not allow yourself to be irrelevant at your workplace. Take care of your mental health and you will be relevant in the workplace. Thank you, Mucha.
Wow. Wow. What a powerful parting shot. Thank you very much, Scholar. I like that very much. John, your parting shot, your final reflection.
I would say that it is important to examine the appraisal that you give every situation in your life, and choosing not to catastrophize situations in your life, especially getting to know, yes, I am in control of this and I am not in control of something else. And the other thing is that to break any pattern, you must name the need that drives that pattern. And so by doing so, to promote wellness, we must make sure that the conversations we are having within are conversations that promote freedom, fullness, and fruitfulness. And the conversations that we are having with other people, whether we are affirming, correcting, or even calling out, they should be conversations that promote freedom, fullness, and fruitfulness. And anything that makes you feel worthless, you also need to understand that deep within you have inherent abilities and deposit that you're worthy, you're lovable, you're enough, and you're exceptional. And so your affirmation is not based on what we are passing as a policy, but who you are as a person. Asante sana.
Wow. Thank you so much, Sharon. Thank you so much, John. Thank you so much, Scholar. You have been phenomenal as always. It has been such a joy to have you participate in this conversation. I'm truly grateful for your insights. They have been phenomenal. There you have it. We've come to the end of our EQ Lunch and Learn. As I always say, I hope you brought the lunch, because indeed we brought the learning. As my parting shot, make an effort. No, an effort is not right. Make it a standard that you have a regular meeting with yourself. I advise at least on a monthly basis, if not weekly, where you check in and pay attention to the cues that are coming from your body. Your emotions are data. They are designed to give you insight. And so the idea is pay attention and use that insight. And as John says, identify the need that underlies that emotion and then do something about it. You're really welcome. We're really delighted to have had you with us over the course of this EQ Lunch and Learn. Diarize, the next one will be back again on your screens. And don't forget, we have an EQ training coming up, and we also have, excuse me, the EQ at Work series starting next week on Monday. So thank you very much for joining us. I'll say goodbye to our panel as we wind up. It has really been a truly delightful conversation. Take care and enjoy the rest of your day.